and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 181st take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. Second time is the charm, my friends. This is going to be something you will not want to miss. I'm so excited to finally have this gentleman on my show tonight. This is one you will certainly remember for a long time to come. But before we get to formal introductions of my guest of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsors. Tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Fortunately, everyone has heard the news that Drew Estate has announced the cancellation of all remaining in-person live events for 2021, including DE25. It'll be postponed to another date in 2022, so stay tuned to details for that. In the meantime, enjoy some of the latest releases from Drew Estate, like the Undercrown 10, commemorating a decade of dedication to Undercrown fans. Drew Estate is commemorating 10 years of Undercrown with the global release of Undercrown 10, a bold new ultra premium addition to Undercrown's current premium lineup of Maduro, Shade, and Sun-Grown expressions. To celebrate the brand's 10th anniversary in 2021, Drew Estate is getting all decked out, a tagline that denotes Undercrown 10's excellent elegant packaging and reinforces the pride of Undercrown's 10 years of excellence. So check out your Drew Diplomat retailers and all retailers that carry Drew Estate for your Undercrown 10 today. And it is my pleasure, everyone, to welcome you to our 181st take tonight. So without further ado, it is my honor to welcome in tonight's guest, sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one tonight and start living united. Mr. Ram Rodriguez of El Artista Cigars. Ram, how you doing tonight, my friend?
All good, Bear. All good. Very happy to be here. Thank you very much. I'm the one that is honored to be in this.
I'm humbled by that remark, Ram. I'm really excited about having you on the show. I'm my only apology is that it took 181 times to get you onto the show. So I appreciate your willingness to be a guest tonight. And this was the second time's a charm. You know, schedules. We had something scheduled previously, but you know what? You know, things happen, and I'm just so glad that we were able to get you on so quickly afterwards. You know, and gosh, it's so good to have you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, man.
Well, I mean, first things first here, Em, we got to talk about what we're smoking tonight, because I'm super excited. This might be the most excited I've ever been for a cigar that's considered a quote unquote valued cigar. But so many people have been talking so many good things about this, and I wanted to save this for tonight's show. So why don't you do introductions, my friend? What are we lighting up tonight?
So tonight we're smoking the Buffalo 10 Connecticut, which is the third addition to the Buffalo 10 line. I'm very happy and excited about it. And it's just been amazing, you know, how well the previous Buffalo 10, the Maduro and the Natural, was received by the smoker community all around the world. And I hope this one as well becomes one of everybody's favorite cigar. It's a cigar that we create basically trying to have a smoke that with a lot of value and at a very affordable price point. And this one in particular, honestly, I think it was the biggest challenge out of the three, mainly because the main characteristics on the Buffalo 10 line is sweet and floral notes. And everybody knows Connecticut, it tends to be a little bit bitter. It's kind of the natural taste of that kind of wrapper. So it was quite a challenge. I think we were able to achieve it by using a Cameroon binder. African Cameroon is a very interesting tobacco to work with. This is actually one of the first cigars that I've ever blended using Cameroon, and I'm very happy with the results.
I mean, I've heard nothing but like incredible praise for this cigar. And like I said, let's not forget, and that moniker of value brand kind of gets tossed around, you know, like it should always like be expected to be less than fantastic if it's like beyond, like if it's below a certain price point almost. but I've had some really good value brands, and including the other Buffalo 10. I've smoked the other two, the natural and the Maduro, and I've really enjoyed them. Um, when you first started, I know you and I've talked about this in other places before about this particular thing, but for my audience tonight, with the Buffalo 10 specifically, the brand, like when you first started with the natural was the first release, correct?
The Maduro was the first
The
one.
Maduro, I apologize. I knew that. I apologize. Like when you first went to putting that project together, I know you really like the name because the idea was originally to put them in 10 packs, but you guys really liked them in the 5.
Yes, that's correct. So with this blend, we already had the name. We kind of did everything backwards. Like the way the factory usually works is that first we work with the blend, and then we start working with the name and the branding and everything. This time we kind of did it on the opposite way. We already had the name. We already have an idea of the concept and the packaging. We still didn't have the cigar. We were blending and blending and blending, and it was quite a big challenge, because again, we were looking for having an extended smoke at a very good price point. So I really need to be very smart on the tobaccos I use for the blend. At the end, we end up with a Toro box press. The Maduro was the first one. And we started working with the packaging. And, it looks nice, that 10 pack. But at the end, we did one like a 5-pack. And we were like, oh my God, like this is beautiful. This is the way that it should be. But we're keeping the name just because we like, like it is what it is.
I really liked it. I really liked the name, and like even before I knew really too much about your story, Rim, or too much about your cigars, what I really liked, like we'll get into this a little bit later. And in the advertisement for tonight's show, I said that your relationship with Big Papi may have put you guys on the map, but you guys are building a tremendous foundation of incredible cigars. You have a storied history. There's so much more than that relationship. And you, as you know, I'm a huge David Ortiz fan, so it's kind of hard not to ignore that. But there's so much to your family and so much to El Artista. But the thing I liked in particular about Buffalo 10 and about Cimarron and everything, it had it reminded me, and I know this wasn't necessarily intentional by you guys, but it reminded me of like the Westerns that I used to watch with my dad growing up when I was a kid. Just the names kind of reminded me of like the Old West almost. I know that's not what you're going for, but it just kind of reminded me of that. And so it always takes me back to whenever I think about you guys or I smoke your cigars, it always kind of takes me back to good times with my father, even though cigars weren't involved with it. It's kind of funny that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, Cimarron actually is a very old brand that we had since the 90s. I reblended and rebranded not so around 5 or 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. But like the Cimarron region is very famous for, those were the new territories, the no man lands during those wild west days. So there is a little bit of relationship with that word Western vibe, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. So the are there any designs on expanding the Buffalo 10 any further, or the 3 that you have right now, is that kind of going to become the staple foundation for Buffalo 10?
For right now, I believe this is going to be the staple foundation, but honestly, I'm not 100% sure of whether we're going to do something different in the future or not. I'm basically, enjoying the ride and see where it takes us. But for now, for next year, we don't have any. We have 3 years already releasing, first the Maduro, then the natural, and now the Connecticut. For next year, I don't think there will be a new Buffalo 10.
Okay. Well, I'm going to continue smoking this. So far, just a couple puffs into this, it's absolutely terrific. Now, there's something different between the Connecticut on this cigar and the Connecticut on the Exactus, another one of your brands. correct?
So this is actually the same one as the Exactus. The Exactus use Connecticut from Ecuador.
Okay.
But the Cimarron has the Connecticut is grown in Honduras, which is a little bit different. Yes, the one from Honduras is the leaf is usually a little bit thicker, a little bit more intense, but not as bitter as the one from Connecticut. So there is a little bit of difference.
And are these, because I know you have farms in both the Dominican and Ecuador. Is the wrapper from one of your farms or?
Yes, this wrapper is from our farms over there. The ones we have in a small town called Ventana, which is like 15 miles from Quevedo, which is the tobacco area over there.
Awesome. Well, really looking forward to continuing to smoke this Ram. And thank you. You were the gentleman who gave this to me at this year's trade show. So I was really looking forward to tonight. I knew we had preliminarily made plans for a show that when we met up at the trade show, and so I was like, I'm going to save this cigar, and everyone's been raving about it. So I'm pleased to light it up with you tonight. So, so we kind of got things kicked off with the cigar and everything. I usually kind of start things off with a little bit of an icebreaker and everything. And so I was kind of reminded, we kind of chuckled about it before we started the show tonight. But I was kind of reminded of the first conversation you and I had when I was interviewing you on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition with William Cooper. And we were talking about, that was just, I think COVID had just started really, I mean, we were kind of about 2 or 3 months into it. It felt like an eternity at that point, but it was only like 2 or 3 months at that point. And I think one of the questions that I brought up was so if COVID hadn't happened, like if there was no pandemic, you know, would the Netflix series Tiger King be a thing? And we had that discussion and everything, and you said that you had heard it. I mean, it was so big, you had heard it from one of your friends in, like, I believe it was like Norway or Sweden had told you about it, and oh man, it's just crazy and everything. So tonight's icebreaker question was, did you ever watch it? Did you ever watch Tiger King?
Oh yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
I still never did. It still never have. It's like I feel sometimes like with like pop culture, like things that are like super popular, like I have like this resistance to them, like I'm this old man, like get off my lawn kind of thing. Like I don't know why. I mean, it looks entertaining. I have no like moral objection to it necessarily. But it was just kind of one of those things. Everything has there been again, like this has been over a year now. I mean, was there any other, like, I mean, I know how incredibly busy you are, but I mean, has there been any other like Netflix shows or streaming shows or documentaries that you've gotten into? Because I know you're a big reader too, so I don't know how much actually time you get spent in front of the TV.
So honestly, I haven't got a lot of time either on the TV or even reading books. It's been just a crazy year. I've been watching the Formula One documentary on Netflix, which for people that like Formula One is incredible, but nothing else. But if you haven't seen Tiger King, man, you should. Like, honestly, it's just crazy. Honestly, I used to watch it, Googling everything to see if that was actually true or just something they add to make it funny or something like that. It's just unbelievable, man. At first, I thought it was not a documentary. That was like a mockumentary, you know, those kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought at first. I was like, oh, this is hilarious, but there's no way this can be true, you know. There's no people that crazy in the world.
It's really funny sometimes well, I mean, there's a lot of things, like worlds that I pop into that I have no familiarity with, and Formula One is one of these in particular. I'm a racing fan, but I'm more of a NASCAR guy. I never really got into a lot of F1 or anything like that, but I've seen parts of this, and yeah, they're just insane personalities. I mean, and we're in the cigar industry, and there's some pretty loud personalities.
Yeah.
but I mean, nothing like that
Nothing.
whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
But
Nope.
so I know that something else happened since the last time we talked, and I know you were expecting a new addition to the Rodriguez family and everything. So I'm terrible that I didn't even ask you about this at the trade show. How's that going?
Well, his name is Gael, and he's 1 year old already.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't had any time to watch TV or read anything. Honestly, I just work and be with my kid lately. It's just crazy, but I'm a very happy cigar smoker and dad now.
This is how much time has passed. So like I interviewed you, it was a little bit over a year ago. Like I said, it was just like 3 months into COVID, and I knew we knew you were expecting. So your son Gael's already a year old. Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Oh yeah, it is. It really is.
So is his birthday in July or?
In August the 12th.
Oh, okay. So it just happened. Okay.
Yeah, 10 days ago.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for doing the show amongst the celebration of the first birthday, because this is your first child, right?
Yeah, this is my first child.
Oh man, I remember those days, and man, it passes in a blink of an eye. I know this last year has probably been like that way for you. Like how is he a year old already, right?
Yep, I see him doing things like a kid, basically. You know, like he's not just a little baby that cannot do anything by himself. You know, now he doesn't. He wants to be in the floor running all over the place, and he knows how to say some words. And I'm like, how did this happen? You know, it's just crazy.
Now, like I know one of the weirdest things about having a kid that young is the fact that they start showing like personality and stuff, and it's just kind of weird. Do you think does he like take more after his mother, or does he take more after you?
So the good things, he's taking it out of mom. The not so very good things out of me. That kid has an attitude, man. You know, like very strong personality. You know, my way or the highway.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I have my youngest is about to be 2, and it's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about, because he lets you know when he's upset, and it's pretty intense sometimes. Yeah. It's crazy. But Graham, I really appreciate you sitting down with me tonight and having this conversation. It's like I said, your story and your family story is something that I've been fascinated with for quite some time, and it's one that's 3 generations deep. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into tonight's major point. And tonight's major point is always sponsored by Protocol Cigars, Power of the P. Tonight's major point is brought to you by the people, cigar people, the people who know everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just pool parties and good times. Well, maybe it is, but behind the fun is motivation for service, a motivation for giving back. From the original Protocol Blue to the latest release in the Lawman series, Bass Reeves, Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's what their life's work has always been and always will be. Power of the P, Protocol Cigars. Now, Ram, I mentioned that your family's history in tobacco and cigars goes back 3 generations. El Artista cigar started in 1956, but it wasn't El Artista back then. It went by a different name, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So when your grandfather started this business, what did that look like? We'll get into what it turned into today, but what did that look like in 1956 for your grandfather?
Well, so in the 50s, we will still be ruled by a tyrant in the country, Trujillo. So I'm pretty sure it was very different of things now. We had a very, very small economy. And yeah, and I mean, we were probably like how we see Cuba now, you know, like a very little bit behind in economy and things. My grandfather decided to venture and open a small cigar shop. Basically on the island, there were like not even cigarettes was a thing, you know. Everybody used to smoke this kind of cigars. We call it perritos. The perritos looks very similar to our chirruts. They are made to be foggy, a little bit like that. And he opened a little factory to make cigars and those little perritos to sell in the local market. Yep, exactly. So to sell in the local market in Tamboril, my hometown. It was just like that, but in the 70s, he started selling more in the region until the late 70s that we were basically selling nationwide. My grandfather got sick and my father took control of the operations in 1984. And in that moment, you know, things were different. We didn't have the dictator anymore. We actually killed him in the 60s. And, you know, the economy was booming. Cigarettes were becoming more popular things, leaving behind those perritos. So things were not the same, you know. The cigar industry in the Dominican Republic was basically dying. Then in the 90s, you know, the cigar boom came and things changed immediately. That's when we decided to change the name of the company and to start exporting our products instead of just focusing here in the local market. Our previous name was Tabacalera Puro Cibao, by the way. And in the 90s, El Artista was born. My father opened a cigar shop in Queens, in New York, and he was traveling back and forward, going to the RTDAs of the time and doing events all over the place. And after the boom, you know, things slowed down a little bit. But in that time, we were also selling in Europe. We did a joint venture to open a distributor called Hispano-Europeas de Tabaco in Madrid, Spain. Happening all this at the same time, like one of my grandfather was a farmer, so he used to grow his own tobacco as well. And we kept the tradition. My father continued growing and using his own tobacco, also doing a little bit of tobacco trading. And during the boom, when things became a little bit harder because, you know, there was not enough tobacco to fulfill the market, he was able to make some good business, mainly buying tobacco from the States, Connecticut wrapper, and reselling it here, and that was pretty big. Then in the early 2000s, we start positioning ourselves better and better. And that's when he starts doing a lot of trading in Ecuador as well. In 2008 or 2009, I think it was, is when we established a business over there in Ecuador and, you know, focus a little bit more on that side of the industry. Other than that, like nowadays, we manufacture a little bit more than 9 million cigars every year. And on the tobacco side, we are probably the biggest leaf grower here in the Dominican Republic. We grow around 2,500 hectares of tobacco here and another 600 in Ecuador. We have manufacturing operations in Tamboril, our hometown, also in Moca, which is the town next door, and Salcedo and in La Vega. Two cigar factories, the one in Tamboril and a brand new one in La Vega. And you can find our products not only in the States, but in Europe, some parts of Asia, Canada, and some other parts of Central Latin America as well.
It just goes to show you like how much has changed in a year. You said you guys do 9 million cigars now. You're up to 9 million.
Yes. So
it was 7.5 when we talked last year. That's
yes.
incredible.
So After we talked, the factory was closed when we talked in
Right.
that moment.
I remember.
Yeah, last year versus 2019, we increased almost a million additional cigars, and this year is growing even faster. I already export to the States during this period from January to August more than what I did last year, and same for Europe as well. Yeah, it's just crazy. I don't know if it was COVID or what happened, but this is a very good time to be in this beautiful industry.
So you had a shutdown and you still manufactured 1.5 million more cigars. That's incredible.
Yes. So that's including the new factory as well, because I don't know if you have heard the lack of a labor force that we're struggling with here. That's one of the main reasons we decided to go out of the traditional cigar manufacturing area. We built a school, and in that factory right now, we have in total around 350 new people that we trained from scratch. Not only for cigar making, but also on the sorting area, like the sorting the tobacco.
So when you say a school, it's a school for like to learn the cigar industry, or is this like oh wow,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So we did that. The government is actually helping a lot the industry because of the lack of people with the knowledge, the right knowledge. The Dominican Tobacco Institute, and there's this a college here, it's called Infotep, which is government owned, that they are also providing instructors. It's like a technician school. They are providing instructors that they go to the factories to teach people.
That's incredible. What man, what a pivot for you guys to make on that. I mean, you saw that the labor force was short, and to do such a quick turnaround like that, and to get cooperation from the government to help out in this effort. That's really awesome. So how long does those do? Obviously different courses, different tasks, different jobs take a certain amount of time to learn. Like have you had graduation? I'm sorry. I'm really just, this is really exciting. Have you had graduation classes yet? How's it going?
So we don't, so it's like, there's no like a formal graduation or anything like that. They do get a certificate from Infotep, as like that they know how to make cigars basically. They know how to sort tobacco. But we already on the sorting side, the way that we are doing it is we got this very big warehouse in La Vega. So the setup we have, the layout is in every table, in one table, around, I think it's 75. The amount of persons that can be in that table is a very, very long one. Working with the tobacco sorting, we started with one, and with one group, so 75 people. And when they were ready, we set up another line with 75 more. And that's how we've been going. Right now, we have two, and two that are already like officially working, and one line that is learning right now. It takes them around 3 to 4 months in order for them, to be able to know how to properly sort tobaccos for fillers. Wrapper, we still haven't done it as a teaching new people to sort wrapper, but I'm pretty sure that's gonna take a little bit more than that amount of time. On the cigar part, in our school, basically they start making Corona because like smaller ring gauge and short cigars are usually easier to roll, and that takes a little bit longer. So right now, the oldest group has around 6 to 7 months, more or less, and they are already making value cigars. And but they still need to continue in order for them to make premiums, which is the goal at the end. That usually happens naturally in a factory. Usually there's a new kid that wants to learn, and we put them in the back of the galera where he's basically learning, and then he starts moving to the front. Usually in the factories, the front tables are the best rollers, and that's kind of the dream. Over there, we start from scratch with everybody, and we have a very good group of instructors that are helping them to achieve that goal.
I have to imagine that going to work for El Artista is challenging because, I mean, you guys manufacture, I mean, not just El Artista cigars. We talked about this before. El Artista makes up about, if I'm not mistaken, Ram, it's about a quarter to a third of the actual total production of the factory. Is that correct?
Like the cigar manufacturing side, you
yeah,
mean?
like
Versus...
your brands, like the Big Poppy, the Buffalo 10, the Cimarron, the Fugly, the Pirosi.
About a third.
About a third. Okay. But you manufacture like a whole different other, I mean, you do Toscano style. I mean, there are tons of different styles of rolling. That's gotta be a challenge in itself, not only training these people, but also, again, like you said, finding them to be able to do so many different types of tests.
Oh yeah, and it takes a while, like for example, you need a roller with a lot of experience to do the pigtail, for example, and even a torpedo. I'm pretty sure if I bring a project to La Vega for torpedoes, it's gonna take them a while to get used to, smaller head and all of that. Yeah, the Toscano is probably a little bit easier. It will be a little bit easier for them. But even short fillers, we also do medium fillers, Cuban sandwich cigars, and we still haven't teach that on that new factory how to do that, and we need to train them before bringing a project like that to them. So yeah, it takes time, and it's not only El Artista, but in every factory, there are way too many vitolas, too many different things. I have some cigars. For example, I don't know if you have seen my crazy 90 by 11 Exactus, the Super Coloso.
Okay.
Yeah, so that cigar, I only have one roller that knows how to make it.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's way too big. It's a little bit complicated, and he's the one that knows how to do it and knows how to make sure the draw is fine on that cigar.
So I mean, just to go back for a second too, in this, like, and my math's never been my strong suit, but the way you're talking about how many people you're bringing in, the line after line, everything. So do you expect to bring, by the time a full year has gone through with the school, you should have about, what, 250, 300 students that are now working in the factory?
So in that factory, you have around 400 in total.
Okay.
Of people, but that's including the people that are having sorting. That's more labor intense than cigar making. On the cigar side, I think we have in total 50 right now, people learning. The rest is they are sorting the tobacco or auxiliary, helping either the cleaning people or just people moving things around, I guess. But on the cigar side, it's around 50. We have enough space for 100 rollers over there. Right now, we don't need 100 rollers, and we are not bringing new people in. We're right now focusing on making sure the 50 we have learn the whole process and make sure they make good cigars, so we can start making premiums over there as well. Basically, what we are doing is in the old factory. Right now, we are only making premium cigars and the value line, premiums and some short fillers. The value long fillers that we do, we are moving that to La Vega right now. But at the end, in La Vega, we want to do premium. We just, want to make sure we are ready to work with any project, to have the capacity for it.
Oh, absolutely. So this conversation is taking a life of its own. This project is fantastic. I'm like super into it now. So I mean, so I was going to talk about this later, but I'll talk about it now. So like when you started taking over operations in the company a few years ago, and we're going to talk about how you decided to bring El Artista brands to market. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for right now, one of the things I want to mention is like when you start taking control, you introduced a whole new wave of quality control too. Like there was quality control obviously before, but you introduced some new processes and everything for quality control. Have you taken those and put them in La Vega as well? Or are they the same? Are they different? What does that look like?
It's basically the same. Since right now we're doing like the quality control, how I use it is that I try to make it standard. There is actually an international rule, ISO 9001 is called, and you can even get certified on it. And what you use in order to have a standard quality control is using what is called the military charts. Those charts were actually created by the U.S. actually during World War II, when they were mass producing guns and military equipment, and they needed to make sure everything was complied with the quality, but very fast. And those charts basically tells you based on your lot or on how many, for example, cigars you're making, how many do you need to test, and based on the acceptance level you have. And there's always also destructive tests, where basically you have to smoke a cigar, for example. There's a standard even for that, using another kind of table. It's a little bit, that's actually, I have a lot of passion for that, but those kind of things, because I went to school for it, I'm an industrial engineer.
Yeah.
But basically it's that, you use the normal curve and the T-student curve based on your lot, and it defines how many cigars you need to test. For premium cigars, I usually test 100% in some of the things. For example, the draw test. Every cigar should have a perfect draw. In value cigars, we usually use the charts based on 99% of the cigars needs to be have a good draw test, and there's a certain amount of cigars you need to try in order for you to be able to guarantee that it's more or less that amount of cigars that are perfect.
Okay, let's talk about draw testing for a second here, because let's talk about what we're smoking, the Buffalo 10 right now. So when I first pulled the cigar out, and I know you've had this experience before with box press cigars, like some box press cigars you grab and then you kind of push down, and there's a lot of give, right? Because a lot of times when you're making box press, sometimes that filler has to be readjusted so that there's better airflow, right?
Yeah.
But with the Buffalo 10, like I was surprised how firm it was just on the feel, right? Before I lit it up, I was like, man, this thing's got some tobacco in it. But I lit this up and the draw is, I mean, it's not effortless in the just free flowing way, but I mean, it's just how I like it, Ram, which is there's a little bit, just a small bit of resistance, but the draw is still it's so easy.
Yeah.
But the cigar is so firm. Like, how did y'all do that?
So yeah, there are little tricks in order to achieve that. I won't tell you all, but
sure, we don't want any company secrets to get out. Yeah. No.
One of them I think that everybody, like, hey, if you are in the cigar industry and you're making cigars, have a scale. Make sure every cigar roller have a scale. So if they don't feel sure that they are holding the right amount of tobacco, when they make the buncher, they weight it. That's when we start implementing that. Everybody has a little. You see those the scales people use to measure gold and stuff like that, like that it all works in grams, but with a very small margin of error, like 0.01. So those skills are perfect. You know, they are making cigars. They're not sure. They're just wait over there. When we start implementing that, we decrease. It was like 90% of the defects disappear just because everybody had a skill. It's just unbelievable. And it's so simple. And it doesn't even take time, you know? So you have the skill, okay, it's fine. Let's go.
I'm gonna ask a slightly controversial question. I feel like it might be controversial. So you went to school for civil engineering, and I know you thought about, when you were growing up, you thought about different professions. Like I know for a while you thought about being a doctor and a couple of other things and stuff. But when you decided, and I feel like, if I'm remembering correctly, it was like when you were 17, you went to your first trade show and you were like, I'm in. This is it. This is what I want to do. So when you went to school for civil engineering and everything, when you got your education and then you looked at the way that El Artista Cigars was doing things and everything, and you knew you were going to introduce these new protocols and processes and everything, I know it wasn't easy or simple to implement them, but at the time when you were first thinking about it, did you think, was it simple then in your head? Was it like, oh, there's all these potential challenges, but there's answers for them? Do you know what, am I making sense? I apologize. Am I making sense? Okay.
Yes. So yes, there was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a piece of cake, you know, basically. And it wasn't. Yeah, absolutely. I'm still listening.
The arrogance of the young, right? You know, like we could listen, you know, my family's been doing this for generations. That's fine, but I've got the answer. Like, no. Yeah, I can imagine that. Like when you think about putting, you know, new processes or new things in place, and you can see like the light at the end of the tunnel, you can see the end result, but the implementation, I imagine, was probably the biggest challenge, like putting them into effect.
Yeah, and the fact that the resistance to changes, and even more in a very old factory where we have people that have 20 years working and doing the same thing, when this little kid that I used to see running around, you know, climbing the tobacco bales, and it comes and pretends he knows better, you know, it's a little bit complicated. And yeah, even, you know, with my dad, you know, I'm still the little kid, you know. Little kid with crazy ideas.
Well, Gael's a little kid now, and here's the thing about that, and we never stop. Like I don't know. Are you the oldest?
I'm the youngest. Actually.
You're the youngest. Okay, so me as well. Okay, so we're always going to be the babies, man. Like we're always going to be the little kid. So, and but so I can empathize at that point. No, I think I really think that, you know, what we're kind of witnessing right now in the cigar industry is a whole new, you know, we talk about, and I've heard this mentioned a few times, we're experiencing a different boom. You know, everyone talks about the boom of the 90s, and I know you weren't working in the industry back then, obviously, but like that boom is different than this boom. And I feel like this is the best way from an outside inside perspective is what I call mine. The way that I see it is that it's this next generation, which you're included in that's changing things, not necessarily rocking the boat, but changing things in a very positive direction and just building on to what your grandfather and father did before you. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's just very interesting to see. You know, I'm not the only young cigar guy in this industry, you know, and it's quite interesting to see not only the people like me that, you know, comes from generation to generation, from a traditional tobacco family, but new people that comes with very different ideas. Sometimes those people that actually leave the first boom and are leaving this one now, they're like, oh, these people is crazy, you know, whatever. It's quite interesting, you know. It's just quite interesting to see what is going on, and all these new people coming into this industry and putting their input to make it better for the future and different as well.
100%. So to kind of go back to your childhood and your youth as you were working in the factory, I heard this story. I'm not sure if it's true, Ram, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told that you were not given an allowance as a child, that if you wanted extra money, if you wanted to go buy a bike or something, if you wanted to buy something, you had to go do it yourself and earn money by doing jobs in the factory. Is that right?
Yes, more or less, let's say. So the rule was, is like they never told me it was an allowance. It was my paycheck, basically. Yeah. So the rule was, after I was done with homework, I had to go to the factory. Okay. During regular days, you know, it was maybe like 1 hour, 2 hours tops a day. That's it. But during summer, you know, I didn't have any homework, so I had to go from the morning. And in summertime, they used to rotate me to all the parts, you know. So I spent some time sorting the tobacco with the girls over there, then hanging with the supervisor to see how to supervise the girls sorting the tobacco, in fermentation, in the farms as well, in the curing barn. From the bottom, you know, so just like any other employee, you know, I had to make cigars. I had to clean after I was done, the whole thing. In packaging, I used to do the packaging and all that, which is actually funny that I'm actually very good at it, you know, in the packaging side, you know, putting the cigars on the cello and all that. And everybody in the factory, like when I see the band, like where they put it together, it's a little bit blurry, but in this area, when they move it a little bit so you can see that it's not aligned perfectly, I hate that. And I used to be very slow just to make sure, you know, there was no, you know, leftovers on top or on the bottom. And when I go to the packaging, I'm always checking on that, because that's how it should be. Like, it should be very aligned, you know, it should be perfect. The cello should be, you know, sealed perfectly with no wrinkles or anything. And I remember one time in Miami, we have some cigars that need to put it in cello, and I was like, come on, let's do it. And I was helping. And we were like, how can you do it so fast? I'm used to it, you know, like I used to do this when I was a kid all the time.
Was there a job that you like? Did you get to pick your job when you would go and work, or did they just put you where they needed somebody so that, or what? How did that work?
So my father wanted me to learn all the areas. So it was basically when he felt that I knew what I was doing, he moved me to the other place. But I think packaging was probably my favorite part of everything.
All right. So what was the least favorite?
The least favorite
at the time. At the time, this is young Ram Rodriguez.
Which one? Well, when I have to clean all the tobacco okay. from the galera, yeah, I had to clean from everybody, you know.
So now that you're in your 30s and you've been running this company for a while, and I know that you've traveled quite a bit as well, what you've observed of other countries and other societies and everything like that. what was probably the most different thing about growing up in a cigar manufacturing family in the Dominican compared to like some of the other people that you've gotten to meet over the years from other countries?
So you mean tobacco countries as well, or you mean overall?
However you want to answer the question, Ram. I just think it's interesting.
So, I mean, it's totally different than anything else, probably, you know. And every time I travel, I feel so proud of being Dominican. You know, being from that my small town of Tamboril, next to this small city of Santiago. It makes me feel very special somehow, you know. All this tradition that we have, and not only on the tobacco side, but also even like what we eat and how we are comparing to people all over the world, even in other Latin American countries that for some people, you know, they probably think, oh, it's probably like very similar. No, we are very, very different from, you know, one Latin culture to another. So yeah, there's a lot of contrast, you know, like Dominican Republic is a weird country where, you know, yes, we are that Latin American, not so wealthy country like the rest, but we have a little bit more, you know, like we are comparing to most of the countries in this territory, one of the ones that has a better economy and more developed. So that's, you know, quite interesting. And I mean, yeah, there's just a lot of contrast, man, you know. And even on like on the tobacco side, you know, every time I travel, you know, tobacco is my passion. So I try to see what's the tobacco culture in other countries, and that's another thing that is very interesting. When you see how we cure the tobacco, how we ferment the tobacco in this country, comparing to similar countries like ours, like Nicaragua, Honduras, or Cuba, but also other kinds of fermentation that you can see maybe in Nordic countries, like in Sweden, for their snus tobacco, or the pipe tobacco in Denmark. You know, it's just very different and very interesting to see.
So let's talk about El Artista's operations, because you have fields and manufacturing. You have, you know, you grow tobacco in the Dominican, but you also grow tobacco in Ecuador. So that's an entirely different country, obviously. Are you able to take your same practices and processes that we were talking about a few minutes ago from the Dominican and apply it to Ecuador? Or because it's an entirely different country, is it different?
So they are more or less the same. We're in the areas that change is basically because of the different climate more than anything else. Like, for example, here in the Dominican, if you wanna get wrapper, probably you wanna have a cover the whole farm. In Ecuador, you don't need that, for example. So there's this process that you don't need. The barns are very different. Here, the kind of wood that we use is usually pine. In Ecuador, we use bamboo. The people obviously is very different, you know, to work with locals here and versus the Ecuadorian over there. The only thing that we don't do in Ecuador that we do here is most of the fermentation process. We bring the tobacco house fermented from Ecuador and finish everything here and the sorting, because here we have a lot of tradition and we have enough experience. In Ecuador, it's not a big tobacco country, and there's not a lot of experience on that. So we usually do the curing, and then the first stage of fermentation, and then it comes here, just because they don't know how to do it there, basically. But it's more or less the same. The same process, the same the curing process is exactly the same. Things that are different, for example, how we prepare the soil is different. For example, here we use a lot of corn. We use beans as well to cut the cycle and to add nutrients to the soil. Over there, we use a lot of soy mainly. Yeah, tiny details, but more or less the same. So we have sunshine. For example, we needed a mulling room, which is basically like a big sauna, you know, high humidity, high temperature rooms to accelerate fermentation. Those processes, we couldn't find anybody that was able to do it the way we do it here. So we had to fly some technicians that we usually hire here to build hours. Flew them over there for around 4 months, and they had to build everything just the Dominican way, let's say.
Mm-hmm. So so here's my last question about this, and then I wanted to go into an area specific about, you know, to go back to when you took over and everything. So you had mentioned that's something really interesting to me. So you use pine in the Dominican for the barns, and you guys use bamboo in Ecuador. And I imagine that has to do with like supply, obviously.
Yeah.
What are there notable differences, like in the length of time it takes when you're aging them in the barn or curing them in the barn, or is there, you know, what kind of differences do we see? Because you mentioned how you have to have cover when you're growing it. Obviously, you have to have cover when you're growing in the Dominican, and not so much in Ecuador, as you mentioned. But what about in the barn itself? Does tobacco take longer in one type of structure than another, or is it relatively the same?
So it's relatively the same because we basically emulate inside, like we achieve the temperature and humidity we're looking for inside. The big difference is that, for example, the pine is not, it doesn't insulate as much as the bamboo. So here you make the structure, and then you have to isolate the structure. Over there is usually just the bamboo, and we use less heating because it usually holds the heat better than the pines that we use here. So less propane, basically, in Ecuador.
All right. So to go back to our point from when we were talking about earlier, when you were introducing new processes and everything as part of your kind of taking over of operations and everything, you know, this again, we kind of joked about how, well, half joked about how, like, you know, you've got employees that have been with you for 20 years, and then here comes the young kid, you know, changing things around, shaking things around. You know, what you know, would you consider it, I mean, that was challenging in itself, but would you consider this breaking of tradition? Or again, I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, or you just building upon the traditions that your grandfather and father built?
I think what I try to do is to build upon the tradition that my grandfather and my father built mainly. And for example, at first, you know, a young little kid pretending to know what he was doing is very different to what I am right now. You know, I feel very grateful to say that you know, people already respect me, and when I have an idea, they usually are very open to listen to what I'm proposing, and even debating to me. You know, like I usually encourage people to tell me why my idea is maybe a bad idea. You know, like, but I was able to achieve that, you know, by respecting all the tradition and respecting the people that it's been doing that same process for a long period of time, you know.
So I know when you were having the discussion with your father about making your own brands, you know, putting the brands that you had, you know, done for the Dominican people years and years ago, and actually making them for the market yourself. I know it was kind of met with some resistance. I mean, I know your dad kind of challenged you a little bit on that. I mean, when you finally convinced him to start on this new journey of El Artista cigars, did you have like what did that vision look like? Was it a vision of like, hey, this is going to be, you know, we're going to be, you know, where we are now? Like, is it kind of aligned with where you thought? Did you think you would be ahead than where you are now? Did you think you would be further behind? Like, where are you in the vision that you kind of presented to your father during those initial conversations?
I thought it was gonna be easier,
Okay.
yeah, creating a brand and selling a product is very, very, very different to making products, and honestly, I thought like, oh yes, like we'll be selling a lot of our brands in less than a year, like this is a piece of cake, this is very easy, and it's not true. It takes a lot of time and dedication in order for you to achieve that. So based on what I knew in that moment and what I thought it was going to be, it's taking way longer than what it's actually taking, in order for us to be what I had envisioned back then and still have.
So let's take it back to that moment when you decided to approach your father about making this gigantic shift in your doctrine about the way that you all did business and everything. Like I said, like we said earlier, Artista still only makes up a third of y'all's actual production. You're still honoring a great number of contracts for and producing cigars for a whole, a global cigar market. I mean, call it what you will, but the when you were putting together this presentation for him and everything, what were some of the biggest points of resistance that your father gave? Like, what was he saying to you that would be the most challenging to you?
So just the fact that I was venturing in another country, with a different culture, with a different system, that was the biggest resistance my father had. He was like, oh, like, you don't know if I wanted to, I'm going to Miami, I'm going to lease a warehouse and I'm going to start from there. Oh yeah, and who's going to take care of that warehouse? Are you going to trust that person? Have you ever seen a lease contract in your life and from that country, like that you have no idea who's going to be the attorney that is going to read that contract to you, that you trust? Like, how are you going to open the business? Like, like, he just had no idea. And things are different here in the Dominican, even to open a business in the States is very simple. Here, you need an attorney, and around, if it's just a regular company, at least 30 days. In the States, you just go online and you get it in less than 24 hours. You have your tax ID, you're good to go. So, but he didn't knew that, he didn't even thought that I was capable of drive around Miami because I don't know the city, like even those little details,
Right. Okay, so I think the biggest question, and it certainly may have changed over the last few years as you've kind of embarked on this journey along with your father, who now, let's also be quite frank, your father is now 100% on board.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
and loves everything that you've done. At least that's what I've been hearing. But let's go back to the original decision that you made when you're like, hey, I'm going to approach my father and the company about making these changes. The biggest question is why? Why did you want to make these changes that broke away from 50 years at the time of tradition?
It was just a dream. Like, honestly, I remember that first IPCPR that I saw those very big booths, we were just walking around, meeting with our customers and, showing them the tobacco samples that we had and some cigars as well, and what I saw there is like, like, this is pretty cool what we're doing, but I want to be one of those booths, like, I want people to know about our factory, about our family, about our products. And honestly, even before that, I remember when I was still like probably like 12 or 13 years old, that my father was going to a cigar event for one of those big catalogs, online stores, and we had some products that were, from our portfolio. And he was like, oh yeah, like I'm just bringing the cigars and whatever, they do the rest. And I was like, no, 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 you need to have business cards. You need to have a brochure with all the products. We don't even have a website. So, I started rushing everything. I remember I did on, Microsoft Publisher, like a little 3-tier brochure, and that I print like 100 copies in the factory and gave it to him. Like, you need to have this where you were showing your products so people can read about the cigars they're smoking, like those little things, about branding, it was always in my head, like we need to build a brand,
That's awesome. Now we're going to be talking about some of y'all's newest releases here in a couple of minutes, but you talked about how all these changes have come about, and you guys have successfully launched several brands, brought a lot of predicate stuff back, stuff that you produced for years, but made it for now. You're branding it under El Artista and bringing it to market, or re-bringing it to market, rebranding, restructuring, everything. Like I said, we're going to talk more about those here in a minute. But this has also opened up your success, Ram, has opened up so many additional doors for other manufacturers. You've partnered with so many people in the past, and those relationships continue to blossom. But now you've got two, what we've learned at this year's trade shows, you've added 2 additional great relationships to the El Artista family. One is Gurkha. You guys are now producing a cigar for them. But one of the biggest ones that I wanted to talk about, because this was huge when we learned about it, but the famed Don Lino line, most notably known as the Don Lino Africa from Miami Cigar Company, that's made by AJ Fernandez. They're now introducing a new line of cigars with 2 expressions, the Don Lino Dominicana, which is now going to be produced at El Artista. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And we are actually packaging those cigars right now.
When Miami Cigar and Gurkha, for that matter, first approached you about these new projects that now you're doing for them, I mean, I resist to ask the question, like, how did that make you feel? But what did that give you in terms of reflection about how far you have come in just the last few years?
Yeah, honestly, it made me feel very happy and proud of everything we've been doing. And El Artista is very big team of people, and all the credit is not only for me, that was the one with the crazy idea, that proposed that to my father, but everybody in the factory, they are all doing a very good job. And having Gurkha and Miami Cigars as our customer is one of the examples of how good things can happen if you do things the right way in your factory.
Was that like a point of nervousness at all for you? Because the Don Lino name has carried a lot of weight in this industry for decades. Did you feel any kind of sort of pressure to take on this project, or did you just simply view it as another opportunity, as another challenge?
Honestly, I see it more as another challenge, more than something that freaks me out. When I see the planning, the production planning in the factory, I get an email every week of what we're packaging, what we're doing. It makes me a little bit nervous to know like how many cigars we need to deliver in the next week or the next 2 weeks, but I feel we're ready. If this exact same thing happened when I started this project, for example, I will be freaking out and I will probably make a big mess. But I feel we are all very well prepared for this, so I'm very confident and happy.
So a lot has gone on in the last 60 years at El Artista, and even a lot in just the last few years since you've taken over. So this has been really enlightening, Ram. I really appreciate you taking us down memory lane, historical lane, and then also bringing us into the future with what you guys are doing. It's really exciting stuff. We're going to talk more about your products here in a second, especially some of your new releases. But I like to kind of break up the show at this time and talk about, these are what I call my fun segments. And the first one is always our one must go. Now you have a little bit of experience with this because you participated the last time you were on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition with me and Will Cooper. So we're going to do an El Oso one must go. So as always, our one must go segment is brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. Now, Ram, we kind of talked about this a second ago, a few minutes ago, a little bit. And I think you kind of gave away the answer, at least part of the answer. But I thought it would be fun because I knew you grew up in the factory doing all these different types of jobs and everything. Now the three types of jobs in cigar manufacturing that I'm about to present to you are all essential to manufacturing cigars. So you can't, quote unquote, get rid of any of them. Otherwise, there's no point, right? But now that you've spent years understanding the entire production of cigars and what it takes and everything like that, if it was possible to get rid of one of these jobs because either A, you don't like it, or it's labor intensive, or it's difficult to train, however you interpret it, it's up to you. Okay. So I'm going to give you three jobs inside the cigar manufacturing world, and you got to say one's got to go. Like one is whatever reason, and I want to hear the reason why you pick it. But I think I know one you're going to keep. But here they are. You ready?
Okay.
Sorting, boxing. So this goes into putting the cigars in cello, putting the label on, putting them in the box. That's the whole thing. Okay. And working with pilones in the fermentation process. So which one's got to go and why?
Oof. I mean, I personally love packaging, but I think I will let packaging go.
oh my God! Just totally threw me for a curveball there. Yeah, I thought that's what you did because you liked it.
I know, but it's a bottleneck, you know.
Okay.
Yes, I think the main reason, honestly, like for example, fermentation, I think is the most beautiful part of everything.
Okay.
Sorting, like, yeah, it's either sorting or packaging, but just by the fact that it's such a big bottleneck, I think I'll choose packaging.
I mean, because I know it's a bottleneck, and that's why you guys actually, in fact, this has been about 18 months old now. You guys actually started manufacturing your own boxes now too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it was such a big bottleneck.
If you mention that one, like box making, I will cut you. Like if you said making boxes as the first option, I would say like, yeah, just leave the other two, box making.
Just get rid of it.
Oh yeah, yes, please.
Why? I gotta ask then. What's the thing about box making that's
it's so complicated to make a box? And I used to complain with all the supply. Honestly, the main reason I decided to open a wooden box factory is because they are unreliable. They are usually unreliable and very slow, and it takes forever. Boxes is always a problem. Like when not only my factory, when you go to any factory to make cigars, they will tell you this. Boxes are always a problem. Take care of your boxes on time.
We heard it all through the trade show.
Yeah.
That people were waiting on boxes. That's it.
Yep, waiting on boxes. It's just so complicated. It's so labor intense. You have to move so many pieces to, run a machine for 20 minutes that will make the 200 boxes that you order. But then there's a line of another 300 boxes, and now you have to wait 2 more hours to set up the machines for those other 200 boxes. It's just crazy. Boxes is crazy, man, for real.
Was that a big part of why you went to the Mazo for the Buffalo 10, or was that in order to keep the price down because you wanted to create a more value?
It was in order to keep the price down more than anything else. Yeah.
I collect boxes. My mother, who absolutely doesn't really like anything about cigars, doesn't understand anything about this world, doesn't get why I do what I do. Supportive, don't get me wrong, but doesn't really get any of it. She's a box collector, and like that's like one of her favorite things is at Christmas time I will always give her 2 or 3 boxes, and she absolutely loves it. Like it's like it depends. It's either the most expensive gift because I actually bought the cigars, or it's the least expensive gift because I'm giving her something used. I'm still trying to decide what it is, but she absolutely loves it. I that's frustrating for me because I know you guys, you know, having learned learned from so many manufacturers over the years, how just painful it is, as you kind of described a minute ago. And I think that makes me appreciate it even more. Like, and I was a really big fan of boxes beforehand, but I think that it makes me appreciate it even more just because it is so, you know, annoying, unfortunately, for you guys. But so like let's talk about this for a second. So when you like, now that you have your own box manufacturing capabilities and everything, when you are working on a project, like what, other than the painful task of waiting for them to be done and everything, what kind of goes into the mindset? Is it material? Is it the design? Like what's the most challenging part on that aspect of it? Not just waiting, I know that's the most painful, but like, is it the design? Is it the materials? What's the most challenging part there?
Material is usually pretty simple because, you know, we use our main wood is called okume. It's a wood we import from Africa. It's very lightweight. So okume and cedar are you know, the 2 woods that you use. Design is where it gets a little bit tricky, and sometimes, well, for example, the limited edition humidors that we did with Buffalo 10 and Big Papi, they might look pretty simple, but it's not that simple to make to print so many colors on with the process that we use here. Silk screen mainly, and it's just a little bit complicated in order to achieve, you know, calibration and with the technology that we use. When silk screen is used also with t-shirts and stuff like that, they have huge equipments that are made to work on fabric, and they are perfect. They're computerized and very simple to use. They calibrate immediately, and they do the same printing all the time. In wood is different. Everything is done by hand. So all that calibration needs to be done by hand. And every time you do the silk screen, you need to actually see, okay, yes, it's still well calibrated. We don't have to make any adjustments. So the design is, I think, the most challenging one out of everything. What I always try to do is with the boxes is I like simplicity, so I try to keep it very simple with some special details that can make the difference. Like, for example, the Puro Ambar box, which is a very simple design. It has on a silk screen that is with we did with clear finish. So you have to, you know, like really look into it to discover that there's a little Easter egg over there with that. Everything is matte, but that little thing is shiny. But you really need to be looking for it in order for you to see it. Those little things that are simple but beautiful at the same time, I think are usually the most challenging parts. And in order for you, like, I want this, but I have this machine. So, you know, I have to make it work. It's a little bit complicated to do it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, again, Ram, thanks for participating in that One Must Go segment. And as always, it is brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. Smoke once a day and start living united. So even though he loves it, the packaging would have to go. And we got some great insights into box manufacturing as well there. So it's a bonus for everybody. So this next segment has been kind of has become one of the most popular on this show, Ram. It's something that I started on my birthday late last year, so back in October. and it's kind of taken on a life of its own. It's been fantastic. And each week I've asked my guests or guests to spotlight or highlight a nonprofit or charity of their choice, and we raise awareness for it. And along the way, we've raised a little bit of money for these organizations, and it's been really eye-opening to see what some of my guests are pretty passionate about outside of the cigar industry. Sometimes the charity is cigar related, sometimes, and a lot of time actually it's not. And but it's been fantastic. And this week, you chose an organization that while I didn't know how to pronounce it correctly, have known a great deal about for a while. And it's a beautiful organization called TECHO. And TECHO is a wonderful, wonderful organization that does a lot of international work. And the highlight of them specifically, I was really impressed by, was their Empathy Pact, which is published on their website. And it's a global movement to make poverty history, which just is awesome. And the idea is to bring funds and everything towards making sure that some of the poorest corners of the world are brought to what some of us often take for granted, just basic standards of living. And TECHO does great work. And this was your choice. So why, Ram, why did you choose TECHO, and why what moved you to choose them tonight?
Well, so yeah, I was actually a volunteer of TECHO when I was in college, and that was the main reason. And honestly, the work they do is amazing, and it's something not only to help the people that live in extreme poverty in different countries, but I think like what really that organization do is that it helps you to open your eyes and see what is going on next door, basically. At least for me, here living here in the Dominican. I remember the first time I volunteered with them, I went to a neighborhood in Santo Domingo, which is a very big city. I think it's the biggest one no, the second biggest after Havana in the Caribbean, and the biggest economy of this whole region. And we have everything there. We have very high-rise buildings, a lot of multinationals settled over there, a lot of beautiful shopping malls with high-end brands inside. But right next door, like in the outsides of the city, there are neighborhoods, that the contrast is just so different. And I went to a town called Mano Guayabo. Mano Guayabo is actually the hometown of Pedro Martinez, former pitcher of Boston Red Sox.
Right.
And I went there to build a house. When I signed in, honestly, I just did it because I had this girl that I was dating. I was like, yeah, I'll go with you. I don't mind. And I was expecting that I was just gonna go there and build a house and call it for the day. But when I start reading the rules and how was the process gonna be, I start freaking out. Like, oh, really? Are you guys? I need to bring a sleeping bag because I'm gonna sleep on the floor in a public school in a very dangerous neighborhood in Santo Domingo. Like, what is going on? So, you go there for 3 days. The first thing they tell you is like, it's not only building. Like, the people that are gonna help you are the people that are actually gonna live over there, and ask them questions, learn about their life, what they do, and why they are over there. And it really opened my eyes. Discovering that people in this country live out of maybe $4 a day, is just incredible. And a whole family, mom, dad, and 3 kids. And the house that I built, which was tiny, they were extremely happy. It was maybe less than 100 square feet house that we built, and they were just so happy. And when I talk to the father of the family, like, what do you do for a living? Well, I try to, find some plantains and go to the main avenue just to sell it, to bring some money to the house. I used to be a security guy in a big shopping mall in downtown. But one day, riding in my motorbike, somebody hit me. My motorbike was destroyed, and they fired me. And now I'm struggling, trying, to bring a little bit of food to the family. It's just crazy, and it really opens your eyes to realize how blessed we are. We all are that don't live in that kind of condition, and we just need to be grateful of everything we have. Little, maybe you consider what you have as something insignificant and little, but trust me, we are all spoiled of what we have.
That's unbelievable, because that's, those are your countrymen and countrywomen that you're helping out. And and I know that there's poverty in every country. There's poverty here in the United States and everything, but it really brings, hearing you tell that story kind of brings a little bit, kind of, definitely should help people make, people feel grateful for what they have. I'm sitting here, and I'm sweating my tail off in my garage. That's where my studio is. And I have what would relatively seem like a modest home in this country. I have an 1,100 square foot house. But in the area that I'm in now, in my garage is actually a little bit over 100 square feet. So it's larger than that place that you built for that family of 5. And,
oh, yeah.
And the way that it changed their life instantly, overnight, to just have what would amount to a room here in my country is, that's so eye-opening. That should make everyone feel just a little bit more grateful for what they have. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's true.
So are you still formally involved with it? Is our El Artista doing any side projects with TECHO specifically? Or were you just moved are you just moved because of your experience, just moved to continue to support them?
Me personally, I still support them. I'm not a volunteer anymore, but I'm always, I always make donations to them. As El Artista, we do some social work here in the Dominican, but we focus mainly in our region, in Tamboril, our hometown, more than anything else.
Wonderful. Just wonderful. Great organization, does great things. And right now, actually, if you go on TECHO's website, and I posted it in the comments, and it'll be in the show notes later on as well. Right now, the big push is for the neighboring country, or the Dominican. It's for Haiti. Haiti just had another natural disaster hit their way. 11 years ago, there was a crazy earthquake that hit, and it just and they're continuing to raise money for that. Right now, if you actually go to their website, if you go to their Empathy Pact, which is a really, like I said, this is something that's really cool. The idea of being a global movement to eradicate poverty. It's a bold goal, but it's something they're going for. Right now, they're in the middle of a 5 billion, or excuse me, 5 million, excuse me, $5 million goal that they're trying. And right now, they're about a little bit over a fifth of the way there. They're at $1.3 million raised so far. So if you feel called, please consider donating to this terrific organization. I posted a link in the advertisement for tonight's show on Facebook. You can go there, hit the donate button, and donate money. This is something that's really cool. Ram, I love, there's a lot of negative thing about social media, and Facebook certainly catches its criticism, but something I always bring to everyone's attention is that Facebook is a $0 retainer when it comes to donations to charity. They don't take anything. In fact, you can donate any amount of money, even from a small meager amount, as much as as little as $1, to any nonprofit organization, and 100% of your donation goes towards that organization. So I really either implore you to go to their website or use that link that I posted on Facebook, and donate to this amazing cause. And as always is tradition on this show, Ram, later tonight, my wife and I have pledged, since we started this movement, that we make donations each week to each of these causes. So later tonight, my wife and I will be making a donation in your honor to TECHO, and hopefully it can go to, the small donation that it will be, it can go on to do a little bit of good for these people.
That's very beautiful, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for bringing it to our attention. So kind of moving back to El Artista for the remainder of tonight's show and everything. I am just wrapping up. I'm still smoking. It's fantastic. Burning my fingertips here. I am just finishing up the Buffalo 10 Connecticut, which is one of your newest releases that you're bringing to market. Has it shipped already, or is it in the process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's still in the process, but we have shipped already around 75% of the orders we got from PCA.
Well, that's terrific. Ram, I know you're as the manufacturer of this product, I know you're anxiously awaiting my opinion. This is everyone, like I said, who has smoked it has been blown away by it. I am in lockstep with everybody else. I am really enjoying this cigar. It is absolutely fantastic. I cannot believe this is a quote unquote value brand. The draw has been perfect, as I mentioned earlier. The construction's been phenomenal. The flavor is really impressive for the quote unquote Connecticut. You think of a milder cigar, and while the intensity certainly is mild, the flavor is certainly not. It's very, very full flavored. I'm really enjoying this cigar. I'm well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, bro. I'm really happy to hear you like it.
So to talk a little bit more about the cigars, you've brought it to market and everything, and with the additional other Buffalo 10 offerings that we talked about, something we mentioned, but I thought was really unique. This is, to my knowledge, and we talked about this a little bit at the trade show, to my knowledge, this might be the only quote unquote value box press cigar that we've kind of seen on the market. And that may or may not be true. So apologize if someone wants to fact check me, they can. But what was attractive to you about the box pressing that you were like, hey, we want this to be box press? What was it about that you really wanted to do?
To be honest with you, we had no idea that it was going to be a box press. We were just blending, and I don't know, I think it was Kevin Newman's idea that like, hey, let's try it on box press. We were getting close to the blend that we were going to release, and we did, and we was like, ooh, this is a great cigar. And we decided to go that way. But to be honest with you, it was not planned. It just happened. It was a little bit of a concern, mainly to my father, when I told him like, hey, we're gonna make a value cigar, and it's gonna be a box press. It's like, do you realize there's more labor and it's not gonna be a value cigar? I was like, yes, it's gonna be, and I'll show you the numbers later. But but yes, I have no idea if there's another cigar considered a value in box press. Who knows? Probably there is out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if someone wants to fact check me, they can. But I couldn't think of anyone then when we were talking about it at the show, and I still can't now think of one that's like considered like what quote unquote a value brand that this box press. And the next cigar I'm going to light up the natural. Actually, I'm really excited about this. I've had this before. It's a tremendous cigar. My favorite cigar that you make is still, and I know everyone's expecting, because everyone knows I'm a Red Sox fan. Everyone's expecting me to say the Big Papi, and I certainly do enjoy it. I love the Cimarron offerings. I think those cigars are outstanding. I mean, just a home run. Not to be too punny, they're a home run. They're fantastic. But let's talk about some of the other new releases that you guys are bringing to market this fall. I know that your planned release was about this time, August, September, for some of those releases. So we talked about the Buffalo 10 Connecticut. What else? What other cigars are you guys bringing to market that's new for all your consumers and fans?
So we also released the new slugger, a new size for the slugger, which is now in Robusto size, 50 by 5. Same blend, San Andres, Mexican San Andres Maduro as wrapper, Negrito binder, and a blend of Dominican and Nicaragua as fillers. Now in a smaller size, is more or less the same flavor profile as this 60 by 7. Usually in smaller cigars taste flavors intensifies a little bit, which I personally enjoy it quite a lot. And honestly, so far it has become my favorite cigar out of the David Ortiz lineup that we have. It's a great cigar, and hope you and everybody get to try it soon.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk because I actually, my Robusto, Corona, those are my go-to sizes typically. So when you announced that you were doing a Robusto in that particular line, I was really excited about it. For some of the same reasons you were talking about, I found that the original version, the 60 by 7, had a lot of great flavor. And I typically see in larger cigars where that that flavor tends to kind of fade out a little bit or be a little bit more muted. Sometimes it just depends. But we were talking about this in a previous interview, so I want to bring it up now. When you actually created the slugger, and actually in the original Big Poppy as well, you blended it to be that bigger gauge cigars. Talk about the challenge that it is to blend in something that size as compared to, say, the Robusto, for instance.
So yes, the slugger, it was actually the first time that I blend in that size in particular. And it is quite a big challenge because usually the blending process starts with a little gavillero, how we call it. It's just the tobacco in pure grade. You try it and start blending one with another, but in a freehand rolled little cigar. Usually when you finally find a blend that you believe is gonna taste good, that flavor that you get in those little freehand roll cigars probably represents around 70% or maybe even less of what the final cigar is gonna taste like. After that, you have to make the cigar and press it. That's the secret. When you tie all that tobacco together, it tastes completely different. And when you try it like that, it's probably gonna be 95 to 96% of how the final product is gonna smoke like, because you also need to let it age. For me, it was quite a big challenge because I'm used to blend this way, but then I go to a Robusto size, and from a Robusto size, I start increasing the sizes and the proportions of the tobacco. So from jumping from that freehand roll to 60 by 7, it was not very easily. I couldn't match what I was smoking at first to the final ring gauge. So I had to tweak it more and more and more, and it took us a little bit longer than usual. So yeah, it is a little bit harder to work from zero, like from a freehand roll to a bigger ring gauge.
So when you decided that you were going to do another expression of the slugger blend, why did you guys settle on the Robusto? Was it because the way it's smoked, or was that just a decision kind of from the very beginning, hey, we're going to go smaller and we're going to go to a Robusto? Or was it that the Robusto, you tried other sizes and the Robusto was the one that won? Like what was the process there?
The feedback that we've been getting from the traditional slugger, it was like, oh, it's a fantastic cigar. It's too big. A lot of people love it and it's been doing quite well. But we always get that question. Do you have it in a smaller ring gauge? We decided to the Robusto in particular, mainly because we already have the traditional Big Papi in total size. And so we decided, we are not expanding sizes on the Big Papi. So let's try to make sure we cover, the Robusto, like smaller ring gauge smoker, all the way up to the 60 ring gauge smoker. So Robusto was the choice for that.
So to go back to the project of Big Papi, which was, obviously inspired by your relationship with David Ortiz to begin with. How involved with you has he been in these additional add-ons, the slugger and now the Robusto slugger? Is he still part of the creative process at all, or still part of the process at all, or are you continuing to build on the legacy that he started with the Big Papi?
So both blends, the blend on the slugger and the Big Papi, was a blend with him. And he was the one that made the final call on which the product was going to be. And actually the 60x7 idea was his idea, because he tells me like, oh, everybody tells me that like my cigar looks like a toothpick in my hand, because my hand is very big. On the Robusto, he didn't participate in the factory per se, mainly because nobody was traveling in that moment, and it was not a new blend, just as an addition to the portfolio. So we didn't start it until we got an approval from him. So when we started making the cigars, we sent a couple of cigars for him to smoke and share with his friends. And after I got the okay, we started producing it to sell it to the market.
That's awesome. I was curious because I know he likes that. I've heard that toothpick story before, so I was interested to see what his take on the Robusto was. That's got to seem like almost like a purito from
yeah
to him or something. But I know this story is kind of like ancient history because it happened over a year ago. But I still go back to the time where I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it was the slugger actually, where him and Alex Rodriguez lit one up on national television. Yeah. When he did that, I know that wasn't necessarily planned or anything. It was kind of just like one of those spur of the moment things. But when you saw that, I mean, what did that like? I mean, that had to just bring immense pride to you and your family. I mean, that had to be a really unique moment for you.
Oh, it was crazy, and I had no idea that was gonna happen. And I remember one of David's friends that was there when it happened text me like, "Hey, are you watching Fox Sports?" And I told him like, "Hey, I'm in the Dominican. We have here Fox Deportes, so they're probably putting soccer there or something. So no." But please make sure to save a copy of it or for me to watch it tomorrow. He was not able to get it, but I had no idea that they were gonna reproduce it all over the place. It was all over social media, and it was amazing. It was just crazy, and everybody was talking about it. Texting me like, "Hey, you saw David smoking your cigars?" I was like, "Yeah, man, that's incredible."
When I can't imagine, again, I'm a huge fan of David Ortiz himself, but I mean, I can't, from where you said, I just can't imagine what that moment must have felt like, even though you didn't actually witness it, like you said, but you heard obviously the result of it. And I mean, we kind of hinted at this earlier, your relationship with him obviously kind of, I won't say launched El Artista, because you were working on things before that, bringing cigars to market and stuff. But I mean, what is the relationship with David and the Big Papi brand, and henceforth the slugger? What has that meant to your business as a whole? Is it kind of is it a huge launching pad off of it? Does it really I guess, change the barometer that much, or is it just another piece of the continued success that you've had? I'm really interested to see how it does for you.
On our premium line, it was a very big hit, and it put our name out there. You know, it gave us a lot of exposure, and so it was fantastic. You know, it was a great opportunity that we took. You know, to get people to know a little bit more of El Artista. So for us, it's extremely important. And nowadays, it's actually on our premium line one of our best-selling products as well. So it's doing fantastic, and it is something very important for us.
It's wonderful. What other new products are you guys bringing to market right now that you announced at the trade show?
So we didn't have any other products, and we had the idea that maybe at the end of this year we're gonna have some other new products. I actually already have some blends that we are ready to be released. We still haven't built the whole brand behind those blends yet. So probably for this year we're not gonna bring anything new. Next year we will for sure. It's been really crazy. That's the main reason why we didn't bring anything else new, because of COVID and the high demand. It's been just a little bit crazy. You know, I just don't want to bring something that I'm not going to be able to fulfill. So yeah, for now, the Buffalo 10 Connecticut and the new size of Slower are the official releases of 2021.
So I know that El Artista launched the brand. You started with this Exactus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you have the Pulita, which is named for your grandfather. The big poppy brands we've talked about, Puro Ambar, Slugger, Buffalo 10, Cimarron, we've all mentioned. Got Your Six is another brand that you guys do. But I'm interested to hear about a very old brand that you guys, I mean, hung your hat on. It was one of the first ones that kind of started the whole thing, which was Puro Cibao. Everything. Is there anything in the works, in the plans to kind of redo that and rebrand that and bring that to market, or are you guys keeping that in the wings, I guess?
So to be honest with you, for the 60th anniversary, my main idea was to release it as Puro Cibao. But unfortunately, we never sold that product in the States as with that commercial name. So we don't have any rights on the brand, and the trademark already exists from a fellow cigar smoker, a cigar factory that is actually very friend of us, Hochi Blanco in La Palma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I saw the idea, and I actually was thinking about, asking my dad, hey, like, let's talk to Hoshi. I'm pretty sure he will sell it, or he wouldn't mind, having a coexistence. But we decided just to go with the path of using my grandfather's name instead.
So the Pulita 60th anniversary and everything. So
yeah.
I mean, I think that's a great homage to your grandfather, who started the brand, 60 years ago. And that's, I mean, my goodness. I mean, it's crazy to think that, we're now halfway to the 70th anniversary of you guys, so in 2026, 70th anniversary will come down. And I know that's a long way away, and there's not you may or may not have any plans for that and everything, but it is 2021 is the 65th year of your company. I mean, have you had conversations with your father? Because I know you never met your grandfather, correct?
Yeah, I never met him.
Have you had any conversations with your father about, like, obviously the company that your grandfather started, and like where it is today as compared to what he built and everything like that, and what you think he would have would have thought about, all these great things that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, every time, my father is a little bit sensitive when I talk to him about my grandfather, and so it's usually like it really touched him, like when I ask him those kind of questions. And but I'm pretty sure he will be proud to see what the Artista is right now. I'm 100% sure of that. And we always try to keep a lot of the traditions he used to have back then. Some of them are, for example, he used to make a party at the end of the year, every single year. Obviously, now with COVID, we're not doing it anymore, but we do that every year for all of our staff. And there's one little silly thing that we do. And at first, I did never understood, but now I do. And it's something that when my father retires or he's not with us anymore, I'll do my best to keep it like that and for it to continue, which is the color of our infrastructure. So my grandfather, all the buildings used to be white and green. It's like a very bright lime green that honestly is not the most beautiful combination for a cigar factory at all. But all of our buildings have that same color. And my grandfather used to tell my father when he was a kid that green stands for hope. And that's why he paints everything with green. And we still do that. Our new factory in La Vega has the same white and green scheme. In Salcedo, we're building a new one, and it's the same. It's white and green as well. So it's just a silly tradition that when my father step out, I need to make sure it will remain the same forever.
So when you say lime green and white, I mean, we're talking about even like brighter than the Buffalo 10 Connecticut, because the Buffalo 10 Connecticut has white and green to it. Is it even, is it even?
It's a little bit brighter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it really is.
It's pretty electric, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Ram, I cannot thank you enough for tonight and all the amazing conversation we've had. And again, just learning so much more about you and your company and your family. I just have a couple more questions, and then we can end tonight's conversation. But again, I always take this time during every conversation that I have each week to thank my guests, because listen, it's Sunday night. This is typically family time, and for you to sit down on a late night and spend a couple hours with me, it really means the world to me. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I really I'm very happy to be tonight with you, enjoying a cigar and having a very good conversation. So I really appreciate that.
Pleasure's mine. So one of the things I was interested about, I learned the last time I had the opportunity to interview you, was that, we talked a little bit ago about some of the new relationships that you've built with Gurkha and Miami Cigar, but you have, as we've talked about before, you've had many relationships globally for cigars and different other tobacco products. But one of the things that really took me aback was that you actually manufacture Toscano style cigars for the country of Italy, which is very famous for Toscano cigars specifically. How long have you guys been doing that? How long have you guys been manufacturing Toscano cigars for Italy?
It's been probably 5 or 6 years already. We do a Toscano style. So about that cigar, it's called Il Colonial. When this project came to us, they were actually looking to make exactly a Toscano cigar. And, I have tried different Toscanos. And when this project came, I started, trying them just to see what they were expecting. What I told them is like, if you want a cigar smoker to get this experience of a, you know, authentic Italian cigar, you should make the cigar in Italy. You know, like if you want a real Toscano, like an authentic Toscano, you have to use Kentucky the Benevento, which is Kentucky seed grown in the Benevento region in Italy, fire cured over there, and make your cigars right at the spot. What I'm willing to do is a Dominican interpretation of Toscano, and that's what we did. So it has a very similar shape. It's not 100 like exactly as a Toscano. It's a little bit different, and it's a blended product with fire cured tobacco, but also Dominican tobaccos inside. It's quite an interesting cigar to smoke.
So that brings about another question. I think we talked about this in a previous interview. There's always this this kind of age-old understanding of cigars, and I've heard this from several people, from manufacturers to consumers to retailers, that when they ever go to these cigar manufacturing countries like the Dominican, where you call home, for example, that when you smoke cigars down in the Dominican, they taste different. Some would obviously say that they taste better in the Dominican than they ever taste in the United States, or that they taste in Italy or Sweden or wherever your cigars are shipped to and everything. Have you found that to be the case? I know you're very partial to your home country, but did you find that they taste different, or they taste maybe even better in your home country than they do in others?
They do taste different. To be honest with you, I have also tried cigars that taste terrible in the Dominican, but when I smoke at some other places, it smokes unbelievably fine. So yes, there's probably the main reason is aging. You know, it takes time for you to transport the tobacco, but yes, cigars taste completely different depending on where you are at, for sure.
How nervous does that make you as a manufacturer when you're putting together a cigar, and you're like you said, some taste bad here and then they taste great other places, or they taste great there and then they taste different other places? Like, how nerve-wracking is that for you as a manufacturer to understand that, hey, in someplace else, wherever these cigars end up, whether they're in Italy or other places in Europe or the United States or other places in South America and Central America, they're going to taste different? Like, how, God, that has to just,
it freaks me out, man. It really does. And when I travel, I usually travel with a bag of the cigars that I'm going to release, like new products, just to see how different it will taste. But at the end, you know, like, I think it all depends even on the moisture in the environment. So you need to let it rest in that particular part of the world where you are at. And that's usually what I try to do. At the end, there's that doesn't guarantees me that it's gonna be a great cigar just because I tried it in Texas and it smoked great, you know. But at least I try, I guess.
Have you ever like scrapped a project or gone back to the drawing board because like you smoked it somewhere else and you're like, we got to change this? Like,
It have never happened to me yet, but
knock on wood, right? Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. Yeah.
It's good. I can't imagine that. And this is the first time I've ever asked anyone that question, because I've heard that, and I've certainly experienced it. I mean, I've been to the Dominican. Unfortunately, just because I would love to go other places, it's the only other cigar manufacturing. It's the only cigar manufacturing I've been to. My experience was wonderful there, obviously, but the cigars were tremendous. But I mean, I would love to go to other countries as well, and I know I'll have that opportunity before long. Hopefully, when everything kind of with this with COVID kind of gets back to. I hate going back to normal. When the COVID situation kind of gets resolved.
Yes, thank you.
So we talked about that last time we had an interview.
Yeah,
so
I remember.
But the I mean, I have such a tremendous amount of respect for what you do. knowing that the challenges of making the cigar are with, I mean, we've discussed several of them tonight, but to know that even after you've done everything that you possibly can and you've made this, for all intents and purposes, a perfect product, right? And then, once you ship it, it could potentially be different and stuff. That's, I'm wow. I mean, that's just an incredible amount of pressure. I can't imagine what you guys go through. So, again, Ram, thank you so much for sharing your story and everything tonight. I really do appreciate it. I have one last question. It's always our last question of the evening, which is our curveball segment, which is always brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Sock has been knocking them out of the park 6 consecutive years in consensus top 3. Yep, I looked it up, and I even got fact checked by my partner on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition, Mr. Will Cooper. So tonight, Ram, our curveball segment is this. Now, we kind of just talked about how you, for the last 6 years, you've been manufacturing Toscano style cigars. You've done the quote unquote celebrity cigar with the Big Poppy line, and you manufacture a whole different slew of products for, again, the global market. And each one presents different challenges. And there are a lot of manufacturers that won't do the challenging aspect of a Toscano cigar. There are certain manufacturers that wouldn't do a quote unquote celebrity cigar because it presents its different challenges and things like that. But you've taken all of these challenges head on. So my curveball question is this: is there a challenge in the cigar manufacturing world that exists that you wouldn't take on?
Oof. Okay. First, one can never say never, because, who knows what will happen tomorrow. But blending a cigar, at least for me, like we do some private labels with it, but for our premium line with Candela wrapper, I think for me, at least right now, is a no. Like, no to Candela. I'm really sorry for the people that love that tobacco. Other than the little patches that we put in the Got Your Six, you're not gonna see a Candela cigar from El Artista anytime soon.
Interesting. What is it about it that you're just not a fan of the way it tastes, or is it just?
I'm not a fan of the way it tastes. I'm not a fan of the way you have to process the tobacco in the factory, and I'm not a fan of blending a cigar with Candela. It's just like when I smoke a cigar with Candela, that bitterness, particular sharp bitterness it has, stays with me the whole day. And for me, it's just hard, and even more like on our premium line, where we always in order for me to go out there and sell it, I need to feel sure about it,
Of course.
And if it's something that I don't feel, it will be very hard. So but again, who knows, maybe Ram when 10 years from now will be crazy about Candela tobacco, who knows. But I don't see that in the near future.
I have no doubt that you would make a fantastic cigar. And that's not me blowing smoke at you, Ram. From top to bottom, I've been really surprised and thoroughly impressed from the very beginning, from the very first cigar that I smoked from you, which was the Big Poppy. And as I've gotten to explore these other brands, I'm gaining more and more appreciation for them. And this last new one that I have smoked from you, the Buffalo 10 Connecticut, is just absolutely impressed with everything that you guys have done. These are cigars that, if you haven't tried them, for my audience that's listening, seek out your retailer, ask them to bring El Artista in. I'm giving you my vote of confidence. I don't think I've ever done this on this show. Um, I've talked about cigars that I like and everything, but I don't think I've ever advocated for some people to go to their retailer. They need to go to their retailer and tell them to bring El Artista in, because these are cigars that they just won't disappoint. They're fantastic.
Well, thank you very much, for real.
Well, it's my pleasure. And Ram, so thank you to you. Thank you to our audience for staying up late with us as always. Really do appreciate everyone's all their likes, shares, and comments. You can check us out on every Sunday, except for next Sunday. We're going to be taking a Sunday off. But every Sunday at 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, we always do this show and we bring in some fantastic guests. You can check out our Facebook page for upcoming guests as well. You can also check us out on YouTube. ELOSOFUMAR is also the name of the channel there. Hit the subscribe button, of course. And if you're listening to us later on, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure you hit that download and subscribe and review button as well. If you already are a subscriber, hey, do me a quick favor, just hit the unsubscribe button real quick, but please don't forget to hit the resubscribe, because that really helps my numbers. And that allows me to continue to bring great guests like Mr. Ram Rodriguez onto the show. So thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. It was my pleasure to sit down with El Artista's Ram Rodriguez, a true commending member of the Dominican family, and what your family has done for this industry. Can't thank you enough, Ram. So one more time, I really appreciate you tonight and appreciate what you do for El Artista. It's tremendous.
Well, thank you very much for having me in there. I'm very happy to be here with you tonight. And thank you to everybody for supporting our brands and for smoking El Artista.
And one quick nod to Kevin Newman, who helped put this interview together tonight. Want to thank him as well, your right-hand man for the national sales manager for El Artista Cigars, helped us tonight put this together. Thank you to Kevin. Thank you to all of you, everyone out there. For everyone out there, this is our 181st take live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Euless, Texas. I'm Barry Duplessis. He's Ram Rodriguez. And guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.